Alright, welcome to the channel. Paramay Trades. This is Paramay's Trade Journal, my personal market speculating journal, online edition for you YouTubers out there. And today is the 26th, it's not the 25th. We were doing some recording last night, getting through our CoT Report Friday Roundup editions for the different market structures. Different markets. Looking at the structure of the different markets. So we're going to look at the charts, or we're going to look at the data first. So CoT Report, commercial interest, large hedgers. I'm going to take a peek for the upcoming week. Market's going to be opening soon here, so I want to get the homework done. And let's look at the indexes. Let's look at the indices right down here on the 6-month index and on the 3-year index. So what are we looking at this week? So NASDAQ coming down a little bit. We're still going to watch. We're going to watch pretty much all the indexes this week. So I think they're all worth playing. I think they've been pretty bullish, especially the Dow Jones. Dow Jones looking like it's setting new net long high positions for commercial interest. So they have not been shy over the last 5 or 6 weeks here, picking up some slack from that major sell-off about 2 months ago. So not shy here, still setting new highs, both on the 6-month index and the 3-year index. So those bode well. If you're new to the channel, anything over 80% from commercial interest looks really, really appetizing. Anything under 20% looks pretty negative and bearish. So upcoming week, Dow Jones something to watch. We'll take a look at the chart. NASDAQ was performing really, really well. It came down just slightly on the 6-month index. So any cause for concerns, or it's blazing pretty high. So maybe they felt like a small shift in sentiment here, take some profits. But anything to be too concerned about in the NASDAQ? Just under 80%. So just under that extreme positive outlook. But we'll take a look at the chart and see what's going on. ES not looking as strong as the other two indexes at this point. So let's just take a look at the S&P coming down a little bit, 20% difference here. So anything to be concerned about? No, maybe not. Quite a shift here, though. Quite a shift in holding quite a bit shorter than from a net short position than the previous week. So we'll take a look at the chart and see if that had any impact on it. Russell, RTY, looked like it was flatlining a little bit last week, but I have to take another look at it. Still moving up steadily in the net long positions. So coming off a extreme bearish outlook when we were towards that top. Looks like they kind of got a head start before the market actually started turning. And this was back in January, so it was about the same time that things started to shift. So towards the end of the year, things started to look pretty grim for the Russell. So all right, those are your indexes in terms of CoT. So now let's just take a look at the charts, and we'll start with the Dow Jones because it seems to be the most bullish at this point. Trying to get up over that 50% retrace area from the total down move. So there's that 50 to 60% range. Finding a little bit of confluence going on in here up against this cluster. So what do we like to see with commercial interest? Well, comms are bullish. We'd like to see open interest relatively low, and it was back here. So this was the better opportunity to be a buyer when comms were starting to strike a bullish chord in this area. So we like to see diminishing or relatively low open interest in combination with a bullish commercial interest in the 6-month or the 3-year index to see a turn. And it was obvious that this major sell-off found a nice pivot candle, found a nice swing here, and off we went. So last week we were in that overbought territory, so we cautioned being a buyer up in this range. So it did look like it came down a little bit. Now we're just kind of hovering at that 50% area in the on the WPR. Market sentiment still pretty low. So the overall, I mean, we don't know where Thinkorswim or TD Ameritrade gets this market sentiment data, but it's relatively low right now, which bodes well with bullish commercial interests. So just looking at the chart and not looking at the lower time frames at the moment, this still looks like a pretty darn bullish chart. So if we did pull up our lower time frames kind of indicate to us. Oh, I'd like to see my number 2 chart though. Where is my number 2? So here's our hourly outlook. We had noted previously in one of the videos that we did that we thought this cluster might offer a little bit of confluence, a little bit of resistance going on in here, but didn't quite get up to that that fallen support range, the well-known, well, not well-known, but at least a little bit of work going on in here. Support, nice impulse out, and then a rejection before it tapered off to the downside quite a bit when price action kind of left. So we were looking for a breakdown of this channel. It just didn't break. We thought we'd get a little bit more retrace than we did in this area, but it seems like we're just kind of trading sideways in this range for the moment. Probably up over the 50% area in this confluence. So we thought we would see a little bit of downside, and that maybe this was our triggered event, and that we would look at this support area, this value high for a turn. But looks like this kind of followed, almost kind of followed our intuition, our instinct here, that this would retrace a little bit, maybe break out of the range, and then break back up into it, but didn't quite get the strength that it was looking for. So what does that say moving forward? It's still a pretty darn bullish chart. I mean, this did not break down very much at all. This did not retrace very much. So still a very bullish chart. What's our condition for buying here? I'll have to do a separate video. Just looking at comms, just looking at commercial interest right now. Still heck of a lot of bullishness coming from commercials, and it showed. It showed down here when they were getting bullish. So, well, let me guess we have that right. Can this break down a little bit? I'm interested more in being a buyer, probably in some lower levels. Doesn't mean this thing can't take off and get back up into this V-shaped bounce that we've got going on, but how volatile will it be this week? We'll do a separate video on that. So just the comms for now. Comms are really bullish. It's still a pretty darn bullish chart. I'm looking for some lower levels where there's some well-known support for a bounce a little bit higher. So this doesn't look like it kind of quite cutting up just yet, but we'll do a separate video on it. So let's take a look at the S&P. The NASDAQ's been, well, it's quite similar on this chart. Index is looking pretty similar. S&P didn't break down nearly as much, it doesn't seem. Well, where is our well-known support area? Right here, and we've got some well-known resistance happening up in this area. So do we want to be a buyer and chase this, chase a breakout, higher? If we get back into or up over the zero coefficient, it's possible. A breakdown is possible too, but I would be more comfortable probably being a buyer down in here. Probably a little bit lower of risk. And then we've got this, and some confluence in this area too. So just like the NASDAQ, we've got a little bit of a cluster working in over to the left here, and this seems like we're finding a little bit of resistance. So, get some build up and a break higher. Quite possible. caution wanting to be a buyer up in this range unless we get a solid impulse up. What's it looking like on the lower time frames? It just didn't break down. Didn't break down nearly as much as we thought it was gonna. So just eyeballing, this looks like pretty decent support at this point. Boy, I would like to see some lower prices before chasing it higher, but this is a pretty darn bullish chart, and you know, the outlook of commercial interest is pretty darn good. So, nothing saying this can't go higher. We are trading we're at the at the very beginning of this uptrend, trading in a higher area. Just kind of working at the point of control, and now it just feels like it's kind of breaking down a little bit. Trading underneath the point of control. So is there a little bit more anxious buying a little bit lower to get some more movement to the upside? Some areas to watch, that's for sure. I don't know how comfortable I am chasing this higher up against resistance, unless you're a breakout buyer. If you look at your daily time frames, let's pull up our 3 chart again. I'm just kind of settling here. Just kind of settling in this area where we had support previously, and a little bit of that cluster happening a little bit to the left. So a little bit of confluence going on here. Support that needs to be kind of gained, aggressively gained. Maybe we'll pop out of this and find support on it. Better place to be a buyer, or a better place to be a buyer down here, maybe in this support area. So that's ES. Comms, relatively bullish here. Open interest is relatively high. Would like to see it relatively low when comms are getting bullish, but WPR coming down a little bit from that overbought territory, and market sentiment looking pretty similar to Dow Jones. So this doesn't hard to be a buyer up against resistance. Where we getting some nice build up for a break higher, and then if we can flip that, boy, that'd be nice. Let's see this thing continue on. But what's going on in the market these days? What is going on in the market? The narrative really hasn't changed, so it is, it's pushing higher anyway. Still pushing higher. We'll do a separate video. Maybe we can dive into some right-brained methodology here or approach, and really dig into the chart. But comms looking bullish on all the indexes. We reported this a couple weeks ago. Get an opportunity to buy some dips. There's your dip happening here. Maybe it's not a bad idea, but I'm looking for a little lower. Maybe a little sell off before we continue higher. It's out of the question to challenge the lows. It's not totally. Who could predict that? Who knows? Is that bottom? Can we retest some lower levels before we take off higher? Looks like the volatility is slowing down a little bit, though. It does look like the volatility is cooling off as we trade in this range. So, all right, let's take a look at the NASDAQ. What's the NASDAQ doing? Looking pretty darn similar. Sorry for the chart, folks, but this is how I trade. So I thought that this was a really good area, really good buying opportunity down in this area. But it's never a bad idea in a nice uptrend. If you've got a nice uptrend channel, you've got a good, decent point of control to work with, to be a buyer down near the zero coefficient, or even the -2.5, especially if it's a bullish chart. And we've got some confluence, support to work with, but we've also got this resistance above. So right in the middle of this, it's hard to be, what's the risk reward, look like if you're chasing a little bit higher. into well-known resistance that's happening up over here into this cluster. So yeah, I mean, could this be giving some early signs of a breakdown, trading below the point of control, whereas before we were trading much higher in the point of control, and we had a dip of very anxious buyers willing to get into this trade, and now we're trading up around the point of control quite consistently. So now, point of control dipping down, our buyers, really anxious in this area to push this much higher, or do we have some sellers who are sitting by here, not thinking that this is a really good opportunity to sell up in here near this point of control and near this resistance. So a place to watch for sure. NASDAQ has been, I think, outperforming the rest of the crowd here, and it was blazing. So we were chased heavily, much more than 50%. I think we were up into like probably about 70-something% range. So NASDAQ looking pretty good. Probably better buying opportunities around this area, but I would be cautious of a breakdown, maybe a little bit of a retrace, and where can we get some aggressive buying to tune into at lower levels. Doesn't mean it can't rip, but we're just notably starting to trade underneath this point of control like we were here, but did we have the same type of impulse? So we had a nice impulse, really strong, volatile impulse, and then, anxious buyers down here. So, still good, tremendous amount of volatility on the NASDAQ. Was this, sufficient enough to interest buyers to drive this even higher? Not a bad place to be a buyer down here on the zero coefficient, or even just below it, with some excessive trading underneath the negative 2.5, or close to the negative 2.5. So we're negative 2.5 here, so in between the 0 and the negative 2.5. All right, so let's just take a quick look at RTY. All bullish charts. I mean, what more can you say? RTY, and they all look pretty darn similar right now. We've got this, ascending triangle, kind of look to it. So we're going to break up or we're going to break down. RTY not is, at first was blazing quite well, but has not retraced nearly as well as the other indexes. So not even at 50%. So a little bit, confluence going on here. The well-known resistance up in there, and just sitting above that value high, but better opportunities. Trading right around that point of control again. Trading right underneath it. Start to break up. We find support, above, maybe break out of this resistance and find some support above the point of control. And then, good time to be a buyer, but better opportunities probably down in this area. Okay, that's what I got to say about that. Let's just take a look at our 3 chart real quick. Nice uptrend. Obviously, nice and consistent net long positions increase, not really giving up too much ground on RTY. So, same thing. Overbought territory. Open interest still relatively high. Our perfect recipe is, comms getting bullish and open interest relatively lower, diminishing WPR. And that oversold territory and market sentiment just kind of diminishing or relatively low. So the time to be a buyer was back here, but are we chasing up here? Is this coiling up, and can it break down a little bit before it continues higher? So pretty good run for the last, just about a month now. Just over a month. So nice retrace. It's going to be interesting to see what the markets are going to do in the upcoming weeks, with the narrative not really changing that much on just in the market, economies, whatever the heck is going on. The charts are going to let you know, though. I think it would probably interest folks to just kind of turn the TV off. turn off the news, turn off the the advisors and the the market watch and all this, that, and the other thing, and it's a little too much. You know, if you tuned in probably a couple of months ago, you got the narrative. You don't need to watch anymore. Just look at the chart. It'll let you know. It's going to let you know what's going on. So I think we've covered them all. Index is looking bullish. A lot of green going on the indexes, both in the 6-month and the 3-year indexes. So these look to be a buyer. Also look for some breakdown. Look for those areas of support where we think that there's going to be some anxious buying going on, and conversely where there's resistance levels that we think that there's going to be some aggressive selling, or the probability of some aggressive selling. So okay, thanks for tuning in. I think it's worth noting too that here at Paramay Trades, my channel, it's quite possible that we may be changing the channel name to Trade Instinct. So you'll still be journaling with Paramay, but we're looking to just change the name to something a little bit more industry friendly, if you will. All right, thanks for tuning in. Thanks for hitting the like button and the subscribe button. We really enjoy that, and comments too. We've got a Discord trade community, chat community. So if you want to pop in, talk about the charts, you can download the app. Discord the server address is listed in the description. Thanks for tuning in. I hope you find yourself on the profitable side of the trade, and we'll see you again on the next video.